Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Minnesota Mafia. There's something different on this channel. We're starting a whole Madden NFL 25 franchise, and we're going to start with the New Orleans Saints. Why is the recording start here? I messed up on recording, and I just forgot to fix it up to this point. But we're starting a franchise with the New Orleans Saints. Something different on the channel, like I mentioned. I'm a football guy, I love football, love Madden, and decided this would be the long-running series, the first long-running series I do on this channel. Saints don't have it, and on this video we're going to be mainly focusing on the off-season trades, the draft, all that fun stuff, because that's the fun thing about doing Madden 25 or Madden draft or Madden franchises, is rebuilding teams from the ground up and turning them into NFL franchise, NFL stars, teams, star caliber teams. I'm talking about words right now. But we're going to kick things off on Super Bowl week, starting off post 2024, after of course their lackluster season, being one of the worst teams in the NFL. And we're taking a good look at this Saints roster and seeing how they do. We're going to look first at Derek Carr. Derek Carr was somewhat inconsistent. He showed some flashes of when he was on the Raiders, but ultimately didn't live up to that hype. He missed the last bit of the season. The Saints were doing all well. The Saints were very injured. We're going to go through on this roster. Carr is getting paid a lot of money for the next 2 years, and at the same time, it's likely that he could end up retiring. Then we'll look at Spencer Rattler. He played the second half of the year, didn't get a single win. Wasn't very consistent either, but he is potentially the franchise of the New Orleans Saints. So we gotta give him a shot where he can. He's on a rookie contract, so he's got plenty of time to really work things out here in New Orleans. We can't talk about this team without talking about, of course, the running back, Alvin Kamara, the longtime New Orleans Saint. He's had quite the decade with the New Orleans Saints, and this year certainly was not his worst, but certainly was not his best. He's at that age in the front of his career, of course he has an expiring contract, but he may not be back on his team. There's no guarantee with all the stars to the running backs. Jamal Johnson didn't have the worst year in the world, but he's got an expiring contract as well, and of course you can't talk about someone talk about Chris Olave. He missed majority of the year with injuries in the second half. Didn't have the year that he wanted, and next season he actually won't be out. Rashid Shaheed is also another star-studded receiver on the squad, but he also was running with a lot of injuries, which you could argue is why the Saints lost a lot of games. This team has a solid offense on the squad with an okay offensive line, but the defense is where it's at, and this defense is led by a longtime Saint, Mario Davis. We gotta talk about Chase Young. They made a trade a few seasons ago. I forget what they got. They got a few picks that allowed them to get Chase Young, a solid edge rusher. Back to Mario Davis. He's the star of this team. 90 overall. He's got X factor. He had a solid year, 1 interception, but he still had a really good year with this team. But he's over the age of 35, and there's a big question on whether or not he's actually still going to be on this team once upcoming next year. Which I don't think he will be. At least if I was a betting man, I don't think he will still be on this team. But the defense isn't supremely terrible on this squad. They got some good secondary players like Will Harris, Alontae Taylor, of course Paulson there, Debo is the guy that you can't talk about, Tyrann Mathieu, the former Kansas City Chief. He's got started well in. He didn't have that bad of a year. He didn't have the singular sack, the 1 interception. He still won on this team this year. Of course, Paulson and Debo in the top players on this squad. His rookie contract is also up, and he is going to be in free agency. We are going to have to get a rookie contract. He missed a good portion of the year as well, just like I said a lot of these guys did. And of course, my guy Kool-Aid McKinstry. I don't know anything about this guy. I just really like his name. Don't ask why. But he's going to be one of the top secondary players on this team. I'll make sure that he is. But even then, he didn't even play all that bad. He had hidden development off of year 1, 3 interceptions in just the first year, 2 tackles for a loss. So he could be one of the top building blocks on this New Orleans Saints this year. The squad has a pretty capable and young defensive squad. Cam Jordan, he's not young, but he still is Cam Jordan. But like I said, he's over that age where he may not even have it anymore. Also, I did change a few things in the sliders. I copied off of Octagonal Gaming, if you don't know who that is, I'll link his channel in the description. But check him out. He's one of my favorite franchise creators. But I made it. I copied his XP sliders to make it so players who are younger progress a little bit better, and players that hit that late stage of their career progress and get worse a lot later in their career, which is going to affect us pretty hard. I also updated this draft classes so they're a lot better. They're not going to be for this season because I forgot to do it prior, but they will for next season. Look, a lot of these contracts, a lot of the big contracts come from, of course, a lot of our older guys: Taysom Hill, Derek Carr, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Tyron Mateo. A lot of those guys are going to be making a lot of big money next season. That doesn't really bode well for us. I want to take a look at some of these guys who are having expiring contracts. Rashid Shaheed is the big one, as I mentioned before. Also, Debo, Shamar, John Charles. Look at some guys that could be my Juwan Johnson is also another big one. Chase Young. We have to see if we get him to contract. Dante Pettis, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Alvin Kamara, Peyton Turner. There are a lot of guys here that have 1-year deals, and we won't be able to get a majority of them. We're going to talk more about this NFL draft these later. If you do pick the season up from the Super Bowl, it's going to be the same draft every time. It's not going to change unless you import your own NFL draft. I also didn't know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was on this team, the former Kansas City Chief. He's apparently on the practice squad. I wouldn't have put him in there if I were the Saints, but what do I know? He did play 2 games this year, but other than that, he didn't do much. The running back room was not that bad on the team. They had Jamal Williams and Keandre Miller, which I think could be a big building block. Look at this team's draft picks. They do have 3 from the Washington Commanders, which probably came from that Chase Young deal that they made a while back. We're going to go past Super Bowl week. I did force the Eagles to win out in the Super Bowl, and I wanted to keep things closer to life, and they went about the same as they did last year in a blowout victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. So shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles for making Chiefs fans cry, because we did not want to see the Chiefs win this year. We're going to take our first look at the mock drafts. We're probably going to get about 2 or 3 throughout the offseason, because there's usually you get one about halfway through the year, and it looks like they have us picking a quarterback as the number 9 pick, which wouldn't be surprisingly shocking or supremely shocking, since the quarterback room is a bit of a question for us. Derek Carr is not guaranteed to be the long-time guy, at least not for the next year or 2. Spencer Rattler, there's questions around him, revolving around him, and whether or not he's actually going to age the way that we want him to. So going with O'Neal wouldn't be the worst thing for us. And honestly, I think the quarterback room is not a bad thing for us, but I think there are other areas that I think we need to really work on. Look at the retirements. There are a few big ones around the league. You know, it's like the big one, the free agency room from the Vikings. Cam Hayward, Bobby Wagner's new one, Demario Davis, and so we lose our big defensive, probably best defensive player on the team, Bobby Wagner. Matthew Stafford is huge, so the Rams have to figure out their quarterback situation. Adam Thielen, Aaron Rodgers, and Tyrod Taylor. The Jets don't have a quarterback right now. Offensive line from the Giants. Kirk Cousins is huge after just 1 year in Atlanta. And Lavonte David, just to name a few big ones. But the Falcons also have Michael Penix in the works as their potential franchise quarterback. So now is his chance to really show off next year. That's the storyline, is a new thing in Madden 25. I know next to nothing about the storylines. Really talking to Derek Carr, really about what his off-season goals are, what he plans to work on during the off-season to potentially stay as a starter for possibly all 2025. 9 out of 10, he's probably going to be switched out. But Michael, let him do what he wants, let him improve on the things he needs to. Passing and play action, I think, is definitely the goal here for him. And we also got a press conference talking about what our plans are for this offseason. Now, the original goal was to copy the real-life NFL offseason, as he making all the signings, the trades, and all that nature. So I said there was no plan because I figured we were just going to be copying off of that. But in online franchise, which I've never actually done up to this point, I didn't know that real life people had to take control of the other teams. So like I said, I talked about this based off. I was basically non-computational, non-commit. I didn't commit to anything, thinking that we were going to do that. But as you can see, you can't take control of any of the other teams. guess he lost them all out for nothing. This is something I usually do offline, where I take control of teams and make certain trades on them. I can't do that, but you know what? We're still gonna roll with it. That's fine. That again, just to make sure it is a no-go for me. So it is what it is. I can only take control of the New Orleans Saints, which is fine. I don't mind it. Just something different that I've done in the past. Now we're going to be able to take a good look at our free agents and contract negotiations. But before that, I actually didn't know that this game also had messages, so I was scrolling through that because it was really interesting to look at. It shows you changes to teams, who teams may lose out on, their free agents, who they trade, who's on the trade block, things like that. But we're now in the free agency period, re-signing period specifically. But Chris Olave is obviously the top guy. We give him a 5-year option, so you won't have to worry about contracts until afterwards. Got Alvin Kamara, Chase Young, Paulson and Debo, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and a lot of quote-unquote younger guys that aren't that high up on the hierarchy in terms of this team. But we're on the way to get Chris Olave the 5th-year option. There's no reason not to. They basically let him prove that he is the star on New Orleans Saints. We have to address other contract issues, and we can't get a lot of these guys because the main issue with the Saints is contracts. They are with cap space. They don't have enough cap space to be able to keep or get a lot of star talent. We went to the receiver room to see if Rashid Shaheed was the guy that we wanted over Paulson Adebo. And the receiving room is not all that bad. It's led by, of course, vet Marquez Valdez-Scantling. We do have some young, capable players that can fill the second or third role. But we first wanted to decided to take a good look at Rashid Shaheed first. Rather than the receiving room, no Jawan Johnson, Chris Olave is guaranteed to be back. We still got Cedric Wilson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Dante Pettis. We had to give a new contract. Or we have to give a new contract. We gave a slight bonus to Shaheed. It didn't really work out. He decided, no, I didn't want to franchise tag him because that's a lot of money for one guy. Paulson Adebo was next. The cornerback room, while decent on paper, is not super strong. Paulson Adebo could be the number one name on there. I wanted to try to give him a player-friendlier contract, maybe to convince him to stay a little bit more, but he decided that was not the case. He also wanted to test free agency, and of course that does not mean we can't potentially bring him back. We're still going to try to go on a bidding war for him, but as of right now, it's not going to be the case. Chase Young decided to try to take a shot at him, give him a little bit more to his salary to increase the chances of him coming back, and he ultimately said that he's willing to come back for the next 3 years, which is a plus for us. Alvin Kamara, we gave him a 1-year deal, increased the bid a little bit, but he decided he's going to set free agency as well. Not going to franchise him, there's no point. We got a few lower tier combo players like Peyton Turner on the squad. We also bring back Hugo Amadi. We looked at Trevor Petty. Penny was, of course, a top offensive lineman on this team. Still young, kind of smart. We have a 5th-year option take for him, but I ultimately decided that wouldn't be the case. I think that's too much money for an offensive lineman that hasn't really proven that he's worth that kind of money. All his numbers, his stats, or his attributes do look solid enough and up to par. I just don't see that being the case for Trevor Petty, at least not yet. Looked at Marquez Valdez-Scantling. With Chris Olave, Marquez Valdez-Scantling has enough age where he could be essentially the vet of this team. And he did decide that he did want to come back to New Orleans, which is a plus, having age. We looked at Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan regressed quite a bit. I'm pretty sure Demario Davis would have done the same. We did look at the defensive room. The defensive room is not that bad, but with the loss of course, Demario Davis, this team has a big hole. The franchise, look at the franchise or the free agent pool. It doesn't look all that bad. There are some promising guys there. Paulson Adebo obviously was someone I wanted to go at first. We do want to bring him back and get the secondary to about a good spot. Paulson Adebo, we decided to increase the money a little bit, give him essentially a similar deal to we did before. We obviously have the running back room. We don't have Kamara. We still have Kendrick Miller, but there's still just in case, and decided to try to give a deal to Alexander Madison over the plethora of running backs. Those running backs are kind of a destined, let's be honest. You could have a guy running back and you consider be quite the guy. We ultimately decided to give him only a 1-year permanent deal since we don't necessarily need Alexander Madison on the squad. Middle linebacker with Mario Davis and being gone. We are going to run Shaq Thompson seemed like someone who fit our budget, fit what this team mostly is as a team. We gave him 2 years, a little bit more money because we wanted to convince him to sign with us. Wasn't really high in his market, but you know, you get what you get. Austin Depot does have the biggest bid on so far. I want to see if we can get someone else in the secondary, but decided to hold off for the time being right now. Let's look through all the positions, and one position was tight end. Juwan Johnson, I did want to give him a rebid. Maybe he regrets the decision in leaving New Orleans, but because who wouldn't want to be in New Orleans? Colts are also in a bidding war with us. But then there's a conversation. What if Juwan Johnson doesn't come back? Well, we have a room of tight ends that actually are considered first to second round talent that could take Juwan Johnson's place. Jay Carter is the highest rated option on here right now. There's Travis Parks, who fits the bill for being a potential tight end to basically take that position. There's Joe Levert. What if those two guys to take in, and Joe Levert is the third guy on the lineup. Us right now, I also think should have saved his favorites. For some reason, the last two, Levert and Parks, were saved his favorites, so it is what it is. As we look at the first stage of free agency, Lil Mack is now lined. Thomas Saints is on the Rams. Jeremy Chin joins the Bengals. Justin Simmons joins the Giants. As we do manage to get Paulson Depot back on the roster. Mike Hilton now joins the Lions. Brandon Scherf is also on the Lions. I'm hearing this ain't a deal. He doesn't have a offer. Rosa is now on the Raiders. Let's look at you guys. Aaron Rodgers is now on the Texans. Sam Darnold gets a huge deal. The Raiders do need a quarterback, and that is pretty interesting. Shaq Thompson does not decide to sign instead, but he doesn't have an offer for anyone else. And Alexander Madison decides to join us on a 1-year deal, while Juwan Johnson naturally heads to Indianapolis for the Colts. So now, with that out of the way, now we have to look back to the draft for some tight end positions. There's also the linebacker spot. The linebacker spot is pretty empty with us only having one guy there, and that's not guaranteed to get anyone in free agency. Roderick Lewis looks like the top guy there, but there's also Floyd Crawford, who could be a top pick for us as well on the defensive side if we do decide to pick defense as our top 2 picks. Tito Ortega is probably my favorite guy on this list. He's not highly rated in comparison. Like I said, this is a new draft class, so it's not like I have that much info, but there are guys I'm very interested in looking at deeper as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. Especially with the linebacker room for us coming into question, with no Demario Davis and not really a whole lot of depth in that position. But we shift gears to offensive line for part 2 of free agency, and Bradley Wilson is one of the guys that I'll look for, especially since he fits our cap space. Because like I said, we don't have enough cap space. Michael Schofield is another guy that can hopefully help with the pass protection for whoever the quarterback is going to be, whether it's Derek Carr, whether it's Spencer Rattler. I don't know. We have the second set of the mock draft, and they have a slow pick at quarterback, Anthony at number 9. If you ask me, I don't think quarterback is the position that we're going to go with. I'm not too high in picking them, especially in the first round, given that we don't, in my opinion, really need a quarterback. If you ask me, we'll go past the second stage, and obviously new signs. Khalil Mack is on the Lions, as I probably already mentioned earlier, but my memory is terrible. Jalen Warren is now on the Raiders. The Washington Commanders get David McCarty. The Lions got a few guys in this. DeAndre Hopkins is now on the Raiders. That's a big one. Grady Jarrett, the former Falcon, now plays for the Raiders. Jordan Mason now joins the Vikings. Rashid Shaheed still does not is not on a team. Shaquille Griffin is on the Jets. Aaron Jones is still a free agent. Cam Robinson, of course, we saw it before, is on the Patriots. We looked at Sam Darnold's deal. Shaq Thompson decides to join the Saints. Xavier Woods, my guy, the former Viking, joins the Washington Commanders. And stage 3, Sorry for that. In stage 3, we decided to give a deal to Isaiah Simmons. We need some help in the secondary, so hopefully he accepts that deal and he will probably be the number one free safety, especially since he didn't develop like the Browns thought he would have. We went to the trade block side to see if we could get some cap space because we don't have that much. We decided to deal away Saunders to the Broncos, since why not have an extra insurance player at defensive tackle? We managed to get a 7th-round pick in exchange for him. So, of course, not a big trade, but just something that will kind of help us in the long run. So with that, we go into the end of the free agency period of the offseason, where we didn't really do a whole lot, but we managed to fill out some spots that previously were in the question. We didn't focus heavily on quarterback because, like I said, that's not a situation, it's not a scenario where we need to worry about in the offseason. And we really didn't do too much in improving on this roster. We just did it to fill out some spots that were, like I said, high into question. Look at the free agency period, not a whole lot of changes. Here it's pretty much the same moves. We did manage to get Isaiah Simmons on the roster. We also got Bozeman. And I also gave a deal to Nathaniel Wilson, or Watson, which I ended up editing out for some reason. Look at some trades around the league, and there was a few big trades. Isaiah likely ended up being traded away from the Raiders. I have no idea why. I can't see. The Rams decided to give away Devin Duvernay to the Steelers, which is honestly a really good pickup for the Steelers because they needed the receiver. Isaiah likely has been sent to the Broncos for a new sign of life in the Mile High City. And a weirder trade, the Vikings sending away Jordan Mason to the Falcons for Tyler Algier. Why is it weird? Because the Vikings included picks. But as far as the private workouts, which happened during the offseason prior to the draft, we sent Travis Parks, Tito Ortega, and Blake Sherwood. Hopefully, we can get all 3 of those guys. But I also had to commit Madden for this video package they put for the NFL draft. It's actually really cool that they did this. One of the things they highlighted, because Madden 25 actually changed how the draft looks this year. It's very dynamic this year. Not that I haven't seen a lot. I haven't seen a lot of Madden 25, all right, especially franchise mode, but I've looked a little into it, but haven't seen a whole lot. This is a really cool little video that they put together, so shout out to Madden. But it's time to shift gears to the 2025 NFL Draft. And the number one, the Titans are going to pick at number 1, followed by the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants, all which need to figure out their quarterback situation. And the Titans, with the number 1 pick in the NFL Draft, they're going to select quarterback who was ranked number 1 throughout the entire year, at least for this offseason, Preston Kennedy, to fill up their quarterback spot and maybe take over Will Levis at the quarterback spot. It seems they don't want to go with him. At number 2, the Browns actually pick a offensive lineman in C.J. Fletcher, which I'm just speeding through the draft, sorry. But at number 3, the Giants are going to select quarterback Lawrence House, which they need a quarterback, so I don't know who their quarterback is, but they need one. At number 4, the Patriots, actually picked Roderick Lewis, a linebacker. They don't need a quarterback really per se. So I think filling up their defense is the right move for the Patriots. We're still looking at some of the quarterbacks left. Brandon Monroe, the top name up on the list. The Jags selected number 5. They're going to select McCord, a defensive tackle, which is the second defensive player taken off the board. The Raiders pick at number 6, and they go with a pretty tough pick. It's Josiah Barnett. He is also outside linebacker, so maybe could be next up with Tyree Wilson, or it could be the left-hand man, or right-hand man, to Max Crosby. Our pick is coming up at number 7. The Jets end up selecting Brandon Monroe, leaving 2 top 5 potential quarterbacks left on the board. On our pick coming up, we got to see who we're going to end up going with first. At number 8, the Panthers actually select a lineman. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. And John Holt, because my memory sucks. I need to write this stuff down next time when we get there. But our pick is coming up. We had number 9 pick. Obviously, teams that are going to want this pick. We are looking at deals And there are some pretty decent deals here. We could get a plethora of picks from the Rams, a lot of picks from teams like the Colts, the Vikings. Though we don't need to decide, no, we're going to use this pick. There's some players in mind that we do want to bring to this roster. But the question is, what's the area that we want to try to develop first? Quarterback is up there, but like I said, I didn't really want to go with quarterback for our first pick because it just doesn't make sense right now. With, of course, us having Spencer Rattler being the next guy up and him having time to develop, and we still have Derek Carr. Like Sherwood interests me the most. We need an offensive lineman. We need to really develop this offensive line because it is very weak. It lacks a lot of depth and age. But then there's tight end. Tight end is probably the favorite position here with Jay Carr, Travis Sparks, and Joey Levert still being on this list. And it's really came between those two positions, focusing heavily on the offense because the offense needs the most improvement right now. Lake Sherwood looks like a solid uh got left tackle. I'm stumbling through my words. That could definitely help against the run, help us with the run. We did look at receiver because receiver is a position that we could improve on, but ultimately with the ninth pick in the NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints select Blake Sherwood, a left tackle. I don't remember where these guys are from. I'm gonna do my research next time. I'm gonna write this stuff down. Don't worry. But we decided to go with offensive lineman at number one, or at number one, as our first pick. He ends up being a hidden development talent for us, so it was the right way to go. He was a B minus, a true value pick. I'm glad they bring those back in the game. He seems to excel more at blocking the run more the pass, which is one of the reasons we picked him up. Although we need a pass protector, I think starting with Blake Sherwood is a good starting point for his offensive line to develop. At number 10, the the Chicago Bears went with Holiday, the first skill position player to be taken off the board, which is pretty interesting. It helps give a lot of development to Caleb Williams. We ended up skimming through the draft just to see guys that get picked up later. And with Jerome Wakefield is a big one of some of the big names that I saw was taken by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers already made a trade for Devin Duvernay earlier, and they still have George Pickens. So I think he could fit this roster pretty well. The Washington Commanders picked at number 27, 28, and they also went with Jay Carr, one of the few guys we thought we could steal in the second round, which is a little unfortunate, but it's the NFL draft. These things happen. Let's skim through more of the draft. We're now in the second round, and the Jags select Travis Parks, another tight end that we were really looking for. Which is a little unfortunate. So now that only leaves Joe Levert as one of the favorites here on our draft board. Of course, there are more options past him that we didn't really look too heavily at, but I mainly focused on the top three because I thought we could get one of the top three, and we still can. Now, stupidly enough, I edited that part out and just didn't save it. But we did end up getting Joe Levert with that pick. You also ended up losing out Tito Ortega to the Kansas City Chiefs. They picked him up late in the second round. I know I need to work on my editing skills. It's not great right now. It's going to be a learning process, this whole editing, since it's my first time really doing this type of project. But the Browns at the third round ended up picking quarterback. Hayes, I can't say the first name because it's too small. Hopefully he'll be able to start over the guy with 23 reasons. Gear up in the third round at pick number 9. I may want to focus on the offensive side. Jalen Smith and Lon White were my top options. I did look at quarterback, maybe trying to get some steal at quarterback, but the only thing with Lon White in the third round. And I actually ended up skipping the rest of the third round by accident. I was basically scrolling through the rest of the picks, and I'm clicking next skip to next round by accident, and it also ended up skipping our pick. So I don't even know who we ended up picking with the 29th pick in that round. And I also decided to just bite the bullet on that one because I didn't want to restart the draft. But with this pick in the fourth round, we ended up selecting Braxton Neal, a middle linebacker who ended up being a bad pick, supposedly normal development, nothing too crazy, being a later pick. But he was projected to not even be drafted at all, which, you know, Yeah, so we had to take that hit. That's fine. But we speed through to the fifth round. Now we have all the day three guys, still some steals in the running and the receiver and skill position players. But I ended up forgetting at this point what positions we already picked guys from. I ended up picking Billingsley, sorry, who was a guy I wanted anyways, because we need to double up on the left outside linebackers because we only had one or two coming into the draft. We also ended up skipping all the way to the sixth round with our last few picks. And with this pick, we ended up going with Daquan Silvers at quarterback because I wanted to get a quarterback. He was also a bad pick, but I expected that him coming in late because I didn't know who we picked at in the last third round spot. Well, we are in the sixth round of the draft. Now just skimming through the rest of the sixth round and seeing if there were any steals, which we wouldn't really know until we looked at the end, which was the last pick in the NFL draft for us. And I was thinking that we did end up getting Cam Ayers with that pick, which was actually the guy I wanted. So it was kind of surprising he was left over. He's a 67 overall with normal development. He's got some good looking numbers. Accuracy deep needs to be worked on, but that's to be expected. Lau White has some decent route running, so he's not a bad receiver to have at number 3 or 4. Blake Sherwood, our only hidden development player, looks more like he is a run blocker than more of a pass blocker. The pass block is something he's gonna have to work on, which will be a work in progress for sure. Joe Leverett was the tight end we ended up getting of the top three that we wanted. Not bad numbers. I think he can definitely be a work in progress. He's for sure going to be the starter coming into season one, technically season one of this franchise, because we didn't already do a year. And this was mostly our draft. More of a okay draft, if you ask me. Look around the league, the Seahawks ended up getting Sean Mason at quarterback. Only a 69 overall. He doesn't beat out Geno Smith in the ratings, I don't believe. So it's likely Geno Smith will still be the starting quarterback moving forward. I wanted to look at Jerome Wakefield and being the first skill position player, the receiver taken off the board. He was the guy I was also interested in. A 74 overall with hidden development, or a 78 overall with hidden development. Sorry. Preston Kennedy was the first quarterback at first pick in the draft, 74 hidden developments, got some good throw power, and his accuracy ratings aren't all that bad being a top pick. The Vikings wanted a quarterback. They went with Colin Anthony, or Justin Jefferson wanted a quarterback. They went with Colin Anthony to, I guess, take J.J. McCarthy's spots. He's an unproven quarterback at this point. The Giants went with Lawrence House at the number 3 spot. Manny Holiday was taken by the Bears. He's in close to an 80 overall to start the year. That's crazy. I think the second highest overall in the draft, Travis Parks, the guy that we wanted the most at the tight end position, ended up being not only a 75 overall, but he also ended up having hidden development. So the Jaguars ended up taking the guy we want, and they won in the end. The Jets ended up picking up Brandon Monroe, and then there were a lot of good picks in the draft that we didn't showcase all of them. But now we look at our roster, and it's a little different. The quarterback room has a lot of guys there. We're probably only going to leave 3 of those 6 on that roster, so a lot of fight in that area. The running back room isn't bad with 370, mid 70 overall players. No one really has the guarantee starting role there. The receiving role isn't super strong. Chris Olave is there. Tight end, I think, looks a little bit better. Was having Joe Leverett. The offensive line is hit or miss. I honestly think Eric McCoy is the best guy there by far. I'm heavily looking at Cam Ayers for the preseason. It's likely I don't record the preseason, but if you do want to see the preseason, then hey, let me know. In the comments, I'll record it and I'll show highlights of it. But 9 out of 10, I'll still play it to get a feel for the game because I haven't really played the game yet. For Taysom Hill, I contemplated whether or not I was going to switch him to the fullback position since he still is one of the more versatile players in the NFL, but I opted not to and just to keep him at a tight end and just switch him to fullback. Maybe we'll switch him later on, we'll see. The linebacker position is not great. The defense isn't as good as it was last year. You have Shaq Thompson at middle linebacker, the left outside linebacker spot being questionable. The secondary, while having some bright spots like Kool-Aid, McKinstry, Paulson Debo, and Isaiah Simmons, is still very questionable and not super strong. We do have some solid draft next year. That's going to do it for episode 1 of the Saints franchise. The first time ever doing this. It was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.